slice through the enemy with their unforgiving wings. Run! They will raging!
What is up, guys? My name is Alibaba, and today we're going to be covering essentially what's coming in the next set for JP. I wanted to wait until we got all of the boss monsters revealed to do this all in one video. And I think that's the format I'm going to be taking from now on. So that way you can have all the information about all the cards in the set in one video, so you can just check it out as you want. If you guys prefer to have these videos come out as the information comes out instead, please let me know and I'll adjust accordingly. But for now, we're going to stick to this, and let's get right to it, shall we? So for set 15, we have support for Royal Paladins, Kagero, Genesis, Gold Paladin, Narukami, and Nova Grapplers. And let's get right into it. Or the first set of support that we got revealed was actually the Genesis support. Granted, keep in mind, this is not everything. This is just the main cards that they're deciding to show us. There will be more cards in the set as we go on. So the first card is Regalia of Wisdom Angelica. And her effect is, she's the new break threat for Genesis, and her ability is Limit Break 4. When rolled upon you, Soul Blast 3 to have your Vanguard get plus 10,000 power until the end of the turn. And then you look at the top 4 cards of your deck and add 2 to your hand. And secondary ability is when you unit attacks the Vanguard, so charge 1 and it gets plus 10,000 power. So this card's pretty good. It doesn't have as crazy of explosive effect as some of the other break rights that we've seen for Genesis, but it is going to be good because it is a Regalia card. It is Angelica, so that means you're going to have the cross-ride numbers with Minerva, which we will go over in a second. But Angelica is probably going to be your great card to go because it does let you add 2 cards to your hand, whether that's PGs or intercepts or whatever you're actively looking for at the time. So it's a really good card. Definitely worth it in my opinion. Just for the cross-ride numbers specifically, because cross-ride numbers are slept on nowadays. And they can become really clutch because there's not a lot of decks that can consistently hit 18k, 23k numbers. The second card we got revealed was Twilight Regalia Hesperus. Her effect is in the soul, you can, when it's put into drop zone, your Vanguard gets the following ability. When it attacks the Vanguard, retire one of your opponent's recards. This is so good in my opinion because it gives Genesis something they did not really have access to before this, apart from, say, Iwanagahime, and that is board control. A lot of people underestimate how important board control can be, especially against players that don't really take care of managing their resources and then just throw them out onto the field willy-nilly because they don't really fear them losing their units. And yet when you face a player like that, when they're faced with a dilemma of a deck controlling their board, it becomes kind of pretty clear in the late game who has the advantage, and it becomes really clutch. Also taking out some of those pesky rears that your opponent might be relying on, such as, for example, Dorant in Revengers. Our next card is Omniscience Regalia Minerva. She is a cross-ride with Angelica, which already makes her amazing because it gives her 13k base on top of the break ride. And her ability is Limit Break 4 once per turn. When it attacks, gets the following ability until the end of the battle. At the end of the battle, Soul Blast 3 and Counter Blast 1 and discard 2 cards to stand it and draw 2 cards and get plus 5,000 power. And it has a secondary effect, Soul Blast 3 that gets plus 5,000, which is slept on. A lot of people sleep on this ability, and it can become super clutch, especially when you're using your oranges and your grapes. I don't remember their actual names off the top of my head right now. I'm blanking on them, but they are super clutch for last minute soul charging with those specific cards. And deck thinning off, obviously. But let's get back to her original ability. She restands, draws 2 cards, which is super good, gives you a lot of multi-attack, and the Soul Blast itself will give you more multi-attack. Get even more attacks with Melissa and Raven, and then restanding her. So it gives you a lot of options when it comes to finishing up the game. And it's actually not that terrible cost. Discarding 2 cards is pretty good, and it's pretty easy to do, especially if you draw a couple draws, or if you play a couple draws, and you're smart about how you handle your hand. All right, so let's start covering some of the Gold Paladin cards now. The first card that we got revealed was Sacred Twin Beast White Lion. His ability is, when placed, if you have an Ezo Vanguard, and you have 4 or less cards in your damage zone, you put the top card of your deck into your damage zone face down. It's essentially a self-damager for Ezel. 7k base self-damager, pretty good. Only be used in Ezel though. That's the only caveat to it. And then we have Grand Ezel Scissors, which is the main boss monster for Gold Paladin in this set, or one of them at least. His ability is Limit Break 4, Counterblast 2, unlock all of your locked cards, and then you look at the top 4 cards of your deck, call a card, and then on top of that, he has the effect where if you have 5 rear guards, it gets plus 10,000 power and critical plus 1 until the end of the turn. And then at the end of the turn, you countercharge 1. So it's technically a cost of Counterblast 1, but you can't spam it like you can spam Ezel because you need to CB2. So you can't spam it, but at the end of the turn, you get refunded for half of the cost that you paid. So you'll still have it for the other following turn, but you can't spam it on that singular turn, which is, I honestly think that's a really good take on it. If Ezel had gotten this kind of treatment, it probably wouldn't have been seen in such a negative light. What's happened has happened. Grand Ezel Scissors is here to take the stage. Link Joker has a starting to see a lot of counters, especially in the terms of cards that unlock, because we will see a lot of those. We got a lot of those this set. And Grand Ezel Scissors is just the first one out of a bunch of them. The secondary effect is it gets plus 1,000 power for each of your rear guards, and it's a crossroad with Blonde Ezel, so you know you're going to see those Ezel decks coming back. And they get a grade 2 self-damager for Ezel as well. But it only works if you have an Ezel Vanguard, so don't fear about seeing it in other decks. But it will be seen a lot in the Ezel builds. Alright, next up, I mentioned how we get a lot of cards that unlock, and here's where we start seeing them. The first one is actually a Seal Dragon support, which I'm personally excited for. Seal Dragon Georgette. His effect is when it attacks a Vanguard, Limit Break 4, it gets power plus 5,000 for each of your opponent's grade 2s. And if he has 2 or more grade 2s, it also gets critical plus 1. That's fine and dandy. The secondary effect, I'll get back to the first one. The secondary effect is when placed unlock one of your locked cards. You will start seeing a lot of these this set, which makes me believe they're trying to get cards out that will help you deal with Omega Glendios, because we're getting very close to Omega Glendios. And I'm very curious to see how they're going to handle him. But getting back to his first effect, the way this effect is actually going to be able to be used is it's essentially going to force Seal Dragon decks to run the 9k that CB2s to ignore your opponent's intercepts. I don't know how I feel about this. I personally love Seal Dragons, and I think I'm going to give him a try. I want to see if I can make it to work. If I can get it to work. Actually, I just thought of something. This would actually work really well with Dauntless Restand, because you're swinging with a crit and you can restand. And that's going to be super insane. That's going to be insane, actually. I'm actually looking forward to Georgette now. As an alternate ride to Inferno. I'm okay with that, actually. Yo, don't sleep on Georgette. I'm just saying that. You'll see me wreaking havoc with him. You know I love my crits. As a Reiji main. Gravity Bolt Dragon, a Narukami support. He has the same effect as Georgette when it comes to when place unlock one of your locked cards, but his main ability is Limit Break 4 when your drive check reveals grade 3. Counterblast 1 to retire one of your opponent's front row rear guards and get plus 5,000 power. This one's a little iffy. Well, actually, it doesn't have to attack Vanguard, so it can open up a possibility of potentially getting an extra swing on Vanguard, which can be good. But you have so many other options in terms of main Vanguards for Gravity Bolt that this card will have trouble seeing play unless it's like maybe a one of, or you're playing a budget deck, or you just really like Gravity Bolt and you want to make a deck around them, which is fine. Do think it has potential because it doesn't have to attack the Vanguard to activate its ability, but we'll see how it goes. It is a good budget option at least, especially for opening more attacks on Vanguard. And the third card we saw was Knight of Extravagance Tulis. He has the same effect when place and locked one of your rear guards or one of your locked cards. And Limit Break 4, if you have exactly 4 rear guards, you Soul Blast 1, Counter Blast 1 to call any card from your deck to an empty rear guard circle. So this card brought up a lot of discussion about how MLB would be coming back. And I do see how people might think that. It's definitely a good card. It's a good card for Royal Paladin if you don't have MLB, because it literally lets you just call a spirit, and then you can get extra attacks on the board. And then once you are able to do that, you can then maybe ride on MLB or something, and then you have extra options. It's definitely a good budget option. I can see myself maybe playing it. I'll definitely give it a look once it comes out here in Global. But for now, we just have to wait and see how it goes. It's definitely going to be an interesting card to see in the meta. The last card of these unlockers for now is Goddess of Law Justitia. Same deal when placed on Vanguard Circle or Rearguard Circle, you unlock one of your locked cards. All of these unlock cards are Vanguard or Rearguard, so you don't have to ride them, you can just call them. But her Vanguard effect is Limit Break 4 once per turn. You Soul Blast 3 after your rear guards, get plus 5,000 power. Probably the most underwhelming of them all, especially when you have the new Break Ride and the Nerva to look at. It's going to be a decent budget option, but we'll see if it even sees any play. And to my boy, I've recently fallen in love with Kagero, specifically Dauntless Inferno. So seeing Dauntless Dominate Dragon Reverse come out makes my heart warm, and seeing so much hate on him made me very sad. So we'll try to prove them all wrong when Dominate comes out, and we'll see how good this card is. So why are people kind of disappointed in him? Because he's essentially a board control unit and not a crazy restander or imposing unit like that. But we'll prove him wrong. His effect is Limb Break 4 once per turn. You lock a rear guard to get the following ability. When your drive check reveals grade 2 or less, retire one of your opponent's grade 1 or less rear guards. And when one of your opponent's rear guards is retired by your card effect, it gets plus 5,000 power. And it's cross ride on Dauntless. So not only is it a cross break ride, which is super good because once again, don't sleep on cross break numbers or cross ride numbers, but it scales by retiring. If you don't check a trigger, it essentially scales always, because if you check a trigger, you can give the power. If you don't check a trigger, you're essentially retiring a booster or a starter, which can be super clutch, and it's still going to scale. And don't keep in mind, you're going to be break riding on top of Dauntless Drive. So this card is going to be restanding most of the time, which means you can take out practically all of their boosters. And then if they don't have ways of hitting over your 13k base by just their by themselves, they are not going to be able to push you. Him being a cross ride and being able to take out your opponent's boosters is super good. It's being super slept on, and I am tired of people shitting on Dauntless Dominate Dragon Reverse. We are going to make him work. Mark my words. And other support for Dauntless we got a 12k attacker in Dominate Drive Dragon. It's a rearguard circle during your effect. If your Vanguard to Dauntless, it gets plus 3,000 power. Pretty straightforward. We've seen these. And then we have the shot. Counterblast to the draw card. I do know a couple people that are excited for this. I personally never been too big of a fan of CB2 to draw card, but I do acknowledge that sometimes they are needed. Personally, I'm more excited about Calamity Tower Wyvern. I believe that it's its name. It's this Soul Blast 2 to draw card that uses your soul, which is a resource you actually have access of in these in these break ride era decks. So you can get used to that. You can use it to draw. You can even use Flame Edge Dragon to Sword Charge to continuously draw with that, and then you can save your Counterblast for either Dauntless Restand, for Retires, for Overlord, stuff like that. You can save your Counterblast for that stuff instead. And then we get into some of the Liberator support that we got, starting off with Red Rainbow Liberator Ballin. Basically, when your Blast Liberator is placed, your Rearguard Liberator is placed, if your Vanguard is a Liberator, it gets plus 5,000 power. It's okay. It's a 14k attacker. Grade 2s are going to be very limited in terms of slots, so maybe it'll see play. This card is definitely seeing play. Ballin, White Rainbow Liberator Ballin. This guy is what Liberators have been waiting for. It's what Revengers have had since their release, and I think it's what's going to make Liberators really start jumping in the meta. When your Blast Liberator is placed in the same column as it, if your Vanguard is a Liberator, you cannot charge 1. This is going to do the same thing to Liberators that Dorrant did to Revengers, where a lot of your opponent's aggressive plays is going to come from continuously recycling your Blaster Blade Liberators and essentially retiring whatever they want on your board for just CB1 because this countercharge is one of the two counterblasts needed for Blaster Blade Liberator. It's going to be really good. It's going to be a staple for as long as you're running Blaster Blade Liberator, and I don't see that being not the case. And the other boss monster we got was Liberator of Bonds Gancelot Zenith. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, Limb Break 4, counterblast 1, and put a rear guard on the bottom of your deck to call the top card of your deck. And that unit gets plus 10,000 power. Okay, it's a top card, or it's a top deck. You may ask, why is that so good? Well, you can return heals to your deck, first and foremost. However, the secondary effect is what can potentially make this card super good. A lot of people have been talking about how running this even in non-liberator decks just for this secondary effect, which is when placed from deck, return this unit to your deck to call a Blaster Ray Liberator from your deck. If your deck has no Blaster Ray Liberator, call it from the drop zone. People are talking about using this as recyclable. Now, using this in a deck like Ezel will essentially force you to run maybe 1 or 2 Blaster Ray Liberators. You don't have a lot of space in terms of grade 2s, and basically forcing yourself to run 9k vanillas is going to hurt you in the long term, even if that means being able to recycle a heal. Whereas instead, you can just decide not to call the heal. The only circumstance when you're playing Ezel where you would call a Zenith is if you literally check 4 Zeniths. And then that's just bad for you. In Liberators, however, this card is amazing because if your Vanguard Zenith calls a Zenith from the top deck, not only does that Zenith go to the bottom of your deck or goes back to your deck, but you get a free intercept out of it. Yeah, you're going to lose the 10k because you're returning your Zenith, but you get a free intercept either way. And if you're smart about how you use your boosters, it can still do a lot of good plays. And obviously it's cross ride, so it's another one of those cross break rides that you can't be sleeping on. And we did see, however, that there is a playmat for Gancelot Zenith, which means that there's a good chance it'll be a rank reward. It's pretty straightforward, however, for Nova Grapplers. A Mortar Shore Kaiser's effect is Limit Break 4 once per turn. When your drive check reveals a grade 3 or a Samurai, it gets the following ability until the end of the turn. At the end of that battle, counterblast 2 and discard 2 cards from your hand to stand this unit and one of your rear cards. And then you draw 2. So you're not necessarily losing the cards. You're discarding 2 to draw 2, but you're getting extra attacking power, which is super clutch. And it's not just limited to grade 3s, it's also limited to Samurai cards. And obviously, it gets plus 10,000 power when it restands. And it's cross ride. It's not a crush break ride this time, it's just a cross ride. But you don't necessarily need the break ride for this deck. You can just do old school Shore Kaiser, keep pushing normal, and then go into Immortal with the cross break ride, and then having higher chances of restanding. And let's talk about those Samurai cards. They both have essentially the same. They have the same effect. Both Daredevil and Bear Down Samurai have the same effect, where if they stand during your battle phase, or when your unit stands during a battle phase, if you have an Ashura Vanguard, they get plus 3,000 power. They scale when your Ashura Kaiser restands, and then, or if they themselves restand, they also scale, as long as you have an Ashura Vanguard, which is why we're not really going to be seeing too much of the break ride. All right, and then next up we have Narukami. I honestly did not expect much from this Narukami support, but they actually got pretty good support. Not gonna lie. Tempest Bolt is effective as number 4. You can blast 3 to retire all rear guards, including yours. Now you may ask, why would I ever retire my board? Because you get bonuses from retiring your units now. Also, a secondary effect is it gets plus 1,000 power for each open rearguard circle, including yours. So by just having 5 open rearguard circles on your opponent's side, it gets plus 10,000. So it hits over defensives unless you're dealing with one of those cross break reds I mentioned. But him, Twin Thunder Dragon, I think that's it. Yeah, both of them have the effect where when this unit is retired by your card effect, you draw a card. So you're not losing out on resources by retiring them. So you can call them out early. You can essentially you can filter them out for other cards. And that's super good because, as you know, deck thinning is deck winning. Now, Twin Thunder Dragon is essentially kind of like Armor Break, but Eradicator limited. Its effect is Limber Break 4, Counterblast 2, discard 3 Eradicators to retire all rear guards, including yours. If 3 or more were retired, it gets +2 critical. It gets plus 3,000 for each opponent rear guard that gets retired by your effect. This card can see use. I have the same problem with it that I have with Armor Break. You're discarding 3, but you're not drawing anything off of them. So it's essentially a last-ditch effort, and if it doesn't work, you're all of a sudden out of resources and you're kind of a sitting duck. Ignition, however, this card will be super good, I think, for Vowing Reverse and even for Steve, or Sweep Command if you don't know the meme. But Ignition Dragon's effect is a break right when rolled upon. You counterblast 1 to have your Vanguard plus 10,000 power until the end of the turn, and then you retire 2 of your opponent's rearguards at random with priority to back row. Remember, guys, priority to back row does not mean it cannot retire front row. It just means if they have back row, it'll retire them first. If they don't have back row, it's retiring their intercepts. People seem to forget that for some reason. And then if they have 1 or less rear guards, afterwards you countercharge 1. So it can become free. During your turn, it becomes a 14k if you have more rear guards than your opponent. This card paired with Steve and Vowing Reverse is going to be super fire. Obviously, it has some synergy with the rest of the support, but those two are the ones specifically. Because Steve, by just retiring the 2, you can then wipe their board almost for free. Because it's countercharging after the fact. And then Steve can just do his thing and literally wipe the rest of their board. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Vowing Reverse basically makes it so you don't need to lock too many of your rear guards to do this stuff, and it gives them the crit that much easier. Deadly Eradicator Ue is going to be a staple for Narukami from going on. When your grade 3 Vanguard is placed, you put this unit into your soul to retire 1 of your opponent's front row. This card paired with Steve, paired with literally any Narukami support, is going to be good because it's not Counterblast, it's not Soul Blast, it's literally just building your soul and a free up front row retire. That card is, well, I'm hesitant to say busted. It's really, really, really good, and it's going to be seen in every Eradicator build. No questions asked. And now let's go into some of the cards that were announced yesterday. Starting off, we actually got debated a little bit. We thought we were going to get Reverse Ashley, but instead we ended up getting the Sanctuary of Light cards. These are pretty straightforward, so we'll go over them pretty quickly. Sanctuary Light Planetal Dragon. Limbrick Forest, so you battle face all of your Sanctuary Light. Get plus 8,000 power. When placed, you call Sanctuary Light from your deck. And if Vanguard, if the Terminator is in your soul, it gets plus 1,000 power. So it's a right chain. It calls Sanctuary Light cards. Sorry, it calls from the deck. So if you continuously draw into him, you can just keep writing him and replacing him with a grade 2 or a boost or whatever you need. And that's super good. But Sanctuary Light Brightness Dragon, once per turn, you can blast 1 to have 3 rear guard to get plus 5,000 power. And it's another one of those unlock cards. So you have a unlock card for Sanctuary Light, which can be clutch if you're facing Link Joker. This card by itself is kind of iffy because you want to sit on Planetal for the most part, because it literally boosts each one of your Sanctuary Light cards. And we have the Terminator, which is the grade 2 of the right chain. The grade 1 is in your soul, it gets plus 1,000 power. And when placed, if the grade 1 is in your soul, you call Sanctuary Light. So the grade 1, I mentioned fixing the right chain. What that basically means is it has the effect when it's rolled upon by a grade 2 other than the Terminator. You look at the top 7 and write at the Terminator if you find one. If not, then you're just kind of unfortunate. But it can fix the right chain. You don't necessarily need to draw it to the grade 2 because it does give you a good chance of fixing it. And obviously, it's an AK unit if the starter is in your hand or is in your soul. And before we go into Jewel Knights, let's talk about some different things that got changed with this set. Some text differences for cards like Revenger Raging Form Dragon, the Mangatsu cards, the Witching Hour cards, Musketeers like Cecilia. Anything that basically created a card out of thin air is basically stating that in the card. Now it says add a Revenger. For example, Raging Form says add a Revenger Raging Form Dragon to your hand from outside of your deck. So now it's very clear that it's not grabbing it from your deck, and instead it's just creating a buff that I'm super happy about. Dauntless is now discard 2 instead of discard 3, which is much more manageable and much easier to do. Can't count how many times I've had to play super conservative because of how I have to play around discarding 3 for Dauntless. And having to only discard 2 makes it way more consistent and way more explosive. I am super excited for that. But now let's go into the last support that we have for now. Jewel Knights. Security Jewel Knight Alwyn. It unfortunately does not recycle your triggers as we thought it would, but understandable. It would be a little busted if it could recycle, but remove an Ashley from your drop zone. Not return to the deck, just remove it to have one of your Ashley get plus 5,000 power. Straightforward. Macy use, especially to use the triggers in your drop zone that you've triggered to then power up your units. And then let's go into Ashley Reverse. Her effect is Limit Break 4 once per turn. You counterblast 1 and lock 2 Jewel Knight rear guards. So they made you lock 2. And on top of that, it does not scale anymore. Now her effect is lock 2, counterblast 1 to retire one of your opponent's front row rear guards, and then call a Jewel Knight from your deck. That's amazing, but you lock 2. So now those 12k attackers that you have for Jewel Knights are become that much more important. She herself does not scale, so you're going to be relying on the break ride initially to get that 21k base. Outside of that, it's going to be really reliant on either a booster or having her attack first. And she's a cross ride, one of those cross break rides that I mentioned that I'm thinking a lot of people are sleeping on for now. And then last but not least, Miranda. She is Bushi and Gabe Studios' answer to the Ganslot Jewel Knight dilemma. Her effect is during your turn, if your Vanguard's an Ashley, it gets plus 2,000 power. So it's an 11k unit. And then, on top of that, when this unit attack hits a Vanguard, if your Vanguard's an Ashley, one of your units gets plus 3,000 power to the end of the turn. So it can help another column hit. And then in addition, if all cards in your deck are Jewel Knight, look at the top 3 and add cards to your hand. It's kind of like the Blouse starter, which is super good. We all know how good that is, but it's free. It's not a counter blast or anything like that. It just has to hit Vanguard, which is pretty easy to do in zeros format, as long as you're smart about it. All it requires you to do is have a pure Jewel Knight build. Me personally, that's not going to be a problem because I prefer pure Jewel Knights. But for all those Blaster Blade Ganslot players, you're going to have a decision to make. Do you prefer Blaster Blade and Ganslot, or do you prefer searching the top 3 for a potential PG or a potential free intercept? It's going to be up to you. And some last minute details. We do have an event that's going to be coming up for Genesis Triple Rares, where you'll be collecting these things called Minerva Feather accessories to obtain up to 4 triple rares, Genesis triple rares of your choosing. For me, I need all 4 Ravens because I did not pull any. So that's going to be my goal. Maybe I can actually play Genesis after all. I had almost given up on them. Another news, we get Dauntless Drive Dragon as a rank reward, which is going to be super clutch. We also get Dominate Reverse and Reverse Ashley sleeves. Those are going to be super spicy. I love them. Other news, Reverse Miwa, Reverse Korin, and Takudo is finally here. People have been asking for Takudo. Well, now you get him. Both normal Takudo and Reverse. And I am super happy for them. Link Joker, not Reverse, Link Joker Takudo. You're going to see a lot of them because people are getting tired of running Kai. At least I'm. And then more cards added to the tournament. The coupon exchange. Maelstrom and the Coral Grade 3. And more sleeves in case you missed them. So you got those to look forward to. Yeah, that's it for this set. At least for now. Any other cards that get added when the actual update comes in, we might cover. But the main cards are here. The boss monsters are here. You know what they do. You know how they're going to work. And you know what to pull for if you want to. So yeah, that was it for today. Thank you guys for stopping by. And if you haven't already, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and check me out on Twitch if you haven't. We got a lot of good stuff going on over there. But for now, that's all. Thank you guys for stopping by, and I will see you guys next time. Jane.